eye in the early days of doing that. And then what I'll do is I'll go through some more sort of physical properties, surface chemistry, a little bit of biological applications, then a little bit of environmental implications. And I don't know if I'm going to get through it all in 30 minutes, probably not, but I'll just watch NASA tell me when I have to stop. Okay. So I also noticed at this conference that there's a cultural heritage theme, which is really wonderful. So what I'm showing you here on the left is one of the artifacts we in plasmatic nanomaterials love to look at. That's the Lycurgus cup, which is a Roman artifact from the 4th century AD. It normally lives in the British Museum, but it came to Chicago, not too far from where I live. So that's me looking at it, okay? And so it's a glass cup that has metalwork on it, and the glass you see has got this rosy tint to it, and that turned out to be from metal nanoparticles, mostly gold, that were dispersed into the molten silica, right, when they were making this cup. And so hundreds of years ago, right, the artists were ahead of the scientists in realizing that tiny bits of metal would have different properties than the bulk metal, right? Gold looks gold on the bulk, but it looks red when it's small. And on the right, I'm showing you a picture of one of the greatest scientists of all time, Michael Faraday, his chemical bench. It's still in London in the museum that's below the Royal Institution. So he's the first person we know of in the 1850s to take a metal salt and chemically reduce it to the metal, okay? And he did it with elemental phosphorus as his reducing agent and carbon disulfide as his solvent. And you see here, there's this vat of solution that has this reddish tint, which is just like the Lycurgus cup. Okay, so what we're going to do is basically adapt Michael Faraday's synthesis to control the shape and size of these nanomaterials. And again, you can go back over 100 years and to figure out why does metals on small length scales have these very different properties. So we can do what Gustav Meade did over 100 years ago, which is to say solve Maxwell's equations, which tell us light is an electromagnetic wave, for the case of the small conducting sphere. So of course we would just say today metal nanoparticle. But what we do is you can calculate, and I tried doing this myself, and after about 3 hours I gave up and I just believed him. Okay, so what you do is you take these equations and you put in some boundary conditions. So you want small meaning smaller than the wavelengths of visible light, so hundreds of nanometers. The dielectric constant of your metal that you pick from the periodic table, and the refractive index of the local medium. If you put in all those three things, you can calculate for any metal in the periodic table where there's going to be a strong resonance with the right frequency of light. So in the visible part of the spectrum, which is what we like, it's copper, silver, gold, and copper oxidizes and silver photooxidizes, so we like gold. So, so the word we use today for this is plasmon. Okay, so the plasmon refers to this picture here, where the electric field vector of light is interacting with my small conducting sphere, and we have these huge oscillations of these conduction band electrons. So any metal will do this at the right frequency, and while it's happening, there's a local electric field that you generate, and Serge has already been mentioned. Serge answered on scattering. So again, there are physical effects of molecules that experience the local electric field that we can measure, and also you generate a whole lot of heat when you're putting in a lot of energy into the systems. So those are things we'll take advantage of in terms of properties coming up here. Okay, so what we do in the lab, I'll show you how we do in a minute, is we do what Michael Faraday did. So I'm showing you on the left transmission electron micrographs of little particles of gold, and we change the shape. And so the optical spectra are in the middle. So here's our sphere of gold, aspect ratio 1, aspect ratio is length divided by width. So a sphere, of course, is just 1. And so as you can see here, these particles, which are also shown here in 1 nanomolar concentrations in water, so they're very bright, they're really strong absorbers and also scatters, it turns out. We have just one big peak, right where Gustav Meade predicted, you know, about 520 nanometers for gold and water, about 18 nanometer diameters, and so forth. And then as we elongate the particle, so we're going to increase the aspect ratio, so that's length divided by width. So we elongate the particle, and our plasmon band splits into two. And so how people understand this is the short axis band is right where it was before, because the width of the particles is pretty similar. And as we make the particles more and more elongated, the longitudinal plasmon band, the one that corresponds to electrons sloshing along the long axis, moves to lower energy or higher wavelength. So by changing the shape of the particle, we can tune where it absorbs and also scatters light. So the scattering is shown here. So this is, it looks like a galaxy, but what it actually is, it's an optical micrograph of our nanorods immobilized in a gel. So the field of view is about 3 millimeters. We're just sending white light into this thing, and we're collecting lights that's just elastically scattered out. So this is sort of like me or Rayleigh scattering here. And all the little stars in the sky are the particles scattering light like a little cone, so the spot size